Good morning and a hearty welcome to all of you joining us today for this, the last in our series, looking at Dr. David Lowe's research on humour in coaching. We've already talked about how humour helps in developing the relationship with our clients, in offering them support and helping them inquire into their question or topic. Today we're going to move forward to the end of the arc, I suppose, or the next stage in the arc of coaching, and look at what happens about making progress. So tell us, David, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I called it transformational progress. And what I mean by that is including all of those things like achievement, growth, self-actualization, whatever you want to call it. And it's the movement from current state to future state, whatever that is. So regardless of the coaching approach, we're talking about the ultimate reason for why coaching is taking place, why the client is coming along. And so the client leaves in different in some way. And strikingly, I found very little humor here from either coach or client. Seems to almost disappear in these moments.
That's fascinating. So let's dive a little further into what you mean when you talk about progress.
Okay, so it does depend on the coaching approach, right? But there's broadly two focuses or emphasis on this. There's the goal-oriented coaching, which is the first. So much of the literature in coaching that people will see is about coaching being goal-directed. So setting outcomes, measuring progress, witnessing tangible results. Sir John Whitmore's book, books are often about performance and goals. Anthony Grant is another author who's talking about, goals have structure, but he also acknowledges that there's a tension, that goals can constrain maybe the conversation, and there may be some issues that don't emerge because we're focusing on these goals.
Yes, I know that we've had many discussions over the years between ourselves and also with our participants in training about the role of goals in coaching, how they can be super helpful, but also sometimes super frustrating or limiting in our work. So, yeah, we often find that this obsession sometimes that we see with goals limits our conversations, and that's something that we want to avoid, certainly in my practice, and I think in yours too.
Yeah, I mean, I was very guilty in the early days of my coaching to be driving towards the goals and thinking that was what all it was about. So the other side, so goals is one, but then the other focus from other approaches are focusing on the human potential side. So approaches like person-centered coaching, developmental, gestalt, psychodynamic. It's this kind of Maslow's area of self-actualization, to become everything that one is capable of. And Carl Rogers as well, one of the four fathers of coaching, if not the. But anyway, we won't get stuck into that discussion right now. But these approaches assume that people are intrinsically motivated to grow and develop.
So when you're talking about progress, we're not only talking about maybe achieving a target like getting a promotion, we're also talking about what the client learns in that about themselves, who they are, who they might become through this. So it's a much more broader definition of progress. I love it.
Yeah, including identity, right? It's that, who am I?
Yeah. So, this is maybe something for viewers of our video today to reflect upon for themselves. When they notice that their coaching is going well, what is that well that it's going? Is it about achieving those specific targets? Is it about the other elements of growth that we might be seeing in the individual? So how are you defining progress in your coaching? Would be a good question maybe for you to take away and think about beyond today.
Yeah, Yeah, sorry, I'm going to sneeze, which is very unprofessional, but there's nothing I can do about
Bless
it.
you.
I'm going to try and stifle it. I'm going to try and stifle it.
Go on, do it,
Yes.
do it.
No, I'm going to try and fight it. I'm going to be putting very strange faces in the meantime.
Okay. So while you're doing that, then let's move on.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
There we go. We achieved. The goal was achieved in that moment. There we go.
Complete, as we might say.
Yeah, I feel like I've become from that sneeze.
Fantastic. So let's get back to your research then, and tell us more about what we see in your findings in this area.
Yes. Okay. So I did in some of the sessions, one especially, I did notice that there was an increase in humour. So this kind of contradicts what I've just said a minute ago, though, that there wasn't a lot of humour in there and it seemed to disappear. Because actually, when I looked closely at it, it wasn't about this transformation or progress or growth or anything like that. It was mainly about maintaining the relationship. So, for example, it was jokes about stopping the session. And when I say jokes, sorry, humour about stopping the session, or bringing some lightness to it, or some kind of, we could call it a closing ritual, if you like, that we're coming to the end of it, and it was more the humor around that, the ending of the session, rather than the achievement. In fact, there was only one. Sorry, you go on.
It's showing up in that progress stage of the coaching, but not specifically tied to that progress element.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was one instance where I did joke about the achievement. So the client at the start, of course, they were not fake coaching sessions. They were genuine coaching sessions that I was doing as part of the research, but they were forced a little bit in that the volunteer taking part in the research had said, I'm up for doing some coaching. And there was quite a long lead time between me looking for participants and us actually having the coaching session, which was part of the research. There's a lot of hoops to jump through when you're doing the research. And this person had actually, their situation had changed quite considerably. So when I said, what do you want to talk about and how are you feeling about stuff? And they basically said, I'm 90% content in my life at the moment. And so we kind of had a little bit of a joke at the start with like, okay, this is going to be a great coaching session. And, you've already nearly perfectly satisfied. And so then there was a joke at the end about, they claimed some kind of benefit to the session, and I made some joke about the fact that it was, okay, that's a good movement considering you were 90% content or something like that. I can't remember, but that was an exception, and it does fit with the literature in that in literature about medics, so doctors using humor, again, not finding that they're using it a lot at the end of the surgery or the medical process. But then there are some unique ones, like a doctor noticed how when there was a cancer patient who'd overcome cancer and they were being given the news that they were in remission, etc., they did make some kind of reference to about the fact that they'd been hurting them over the past few months. So there are those kind of unique exceptions, but it's certainly an exception.
It's fascinating to see that that's carried over into other genres of the helping profession. Really interesting. So why is it, do you think, that the humour disappears at this stage?
So I'm sure everyone listening and you, Lynn, I know, have a thought of why probably was. And I think lots of the obvious things are the fact that the coach doesn't want to diminish what the client has achieved, right? They've got to something meaningful. We don't want to diminish it. We don't want to dilute that moment. There's also an element, though, of, I think, in coaching, which is different to some of the other professions that the research has been done in, is that there's about shifting the attention from the person who has achieved or has grown from, we don't want to, the coach doesn't want to take that on, right? So it has that risk of attention seeking or recentering or focusing on the coach, and that can damage the relationship.
That's almost a paradox, isn't it? Because earlier in the findings, you were finding that humour is building relationship, and here you're suggesting that humour could diminish the relationship. So
Yeah.
that seems a little bit strange at first sight.
Yeah. But then if you think of the growth, especially more than the goal achievement, can be quite a deep, meaningful, reverent, significant kind of moment. And certainly within the UK, right, I'm guessing that UK viewers will associate with this, but maybe others won't. And I'd be interested to hear if this is different across different cultures, is that when someone is sharing success, generally in a conversation, we would rarely respond with a humor attempt, right? So I think I referred to it in my thesis that self-deprecation is fine, but other deprecation is not. Actually mocking someone else when they've achieved something, that kind of banter situation is less likely. But it does happen, right? But it's saved for those very close relationships, and I wouldn't expect that to come out in coaching. We've talked about how banter is a really risky device to use in coaching.
Yeah. So humor is great for supporting vulnerability, but doesn't really have such a great role in celebrations.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah.
So moving on from that then, what might all this mean for coaches in their daily practice?
Yeah, so I suppose if we look back at all of the areas that we've talked about, we've got all of these four areas of relationship building, support, inquiry, and transformational growth. I think it's fair to say that humor thrives in some of those. It thrives when there's tension, when there's uncertainty, when there's an element of vulnerability and discomfort and stuff like that. But then it steps back in these achievement, growth, self-actualization. So a really cheesy phrase that I've been thinking of, which I would never use because it's too cheesy, but everything has to be a journey these days. There was a great comedy sketch from one of the people when I was doing my stand-up who said everything's a journey. And I suppose if we're picking up this journey phrase, maybe humor supports the journey, but not the arrival. Is the cheesy phrase that, of course, I'm never going to use. So I'm not going to include that here.
I'm sympathetic to that, but I do find journey is such a useful word. It's a shame that it's become so toxic, but some things are a journey, and let's honour that when it's there. Okay, so the absence of humour then can also be very meaningful. Sounds like an important finding from your
in coaching. So
one
of the concerns was, especially for some people, me included, that in a normal conversation, I find it quite difficult to hold humor back. And so how does this come through in coaching? And I wasn't the only person I spoke to who felt this as well. So being able to hold it back in that moment, though, does show at least some ability and some discernment. So it's that there is an element of judgment there. And it does highlight, again, this relational sensitivity that happens in coaching.
So you've brought up something very interesting here about the almost sacred nature of these transformational moments. So maybe this is a good thing for us to, again, reflect on, and for our viewers to be reflecting on in their practice. When your client is reaching something important and has that transformational moment, what do you do as a coach to support that?
That's a good question for people to think about. Do you amplify it? Do you celebrate it? Do you just sit in the moment? What do you do? So it does seem that, and none of those are right or wrong, right? Well, you could say they're all right. We celebrate with our client, or we amplify their achievement, or we just sit back and let them process it, I suppose. But it seems to ask, transformational progress seems to require presence more than playfulness. So I've been thinking of another cheesy metaphor for this. So I'm going to end on this. It's it's a metaphor using a mountain climbing or hill climbing. So on the ascent, humor is your companion, right? It lightens the effort, it eases the strain, keeps you moving when the climb is getting a bit gnarly, and it travels with you. But when you get to the top, something shifts, right? You don't joke, you don't have banter, you simply stand and take in the view. And I suppose this captures my basic findings. I'm going to go into some deeper findings in the next videos, but this kind of metaphor encapsulates and captures the basic findings. So humor does accompany the work of coaching, but then at moments of transformation, it kind of steps aside and lets the moment have its time.
That's a beautiful image. I love it. And the easy one to carry with you as well when you're working with your clients, to imagine yourself at the top of that mountain and just taking time to admire the view. And what
After
do you
your
do
journey.
when you see that wonderful view after your journey up the hill?
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Cool.
Well, thank you. Thank you again, David, for sharing your findings on your whole doctoral research. This is probably a good point to put a pause in our work on this area. So I'd like to ask you maybe something more generic about your experience of taking a doctorate in coaching and what that's told you about coaching, and whether you'd recommend such a journey to other people.
Well, the recommendation is the hardest thing, but I thoroughly enjoyed. I'm going to say I thoroughly enjoyed every moment. There were a few moments where I was doing some parts of it, like learning about quantitative research and methods. That I enjoyed them. It was a fantastic experience. It was 4 years, meant to be 3, 4 years that I could have carried on forever if I was given the chance. But sometimes we have to just stop and finish what we're doing. So if somebody has a question that is burning the back of their mind, and they really want to look into it and investigate it, I would encourage spending some time either in an MA or a doctorate in coaching. I thought Oxford Brookes was brilliant. I'm not getting paid for advertising them, and the cautionary side is that be prepared for what comes. Life continues. I remember this morning when I had my first interview about joining them, was life is hard, and especially as a practitioner who is not the youngest. And in order to do this professional doctorate, you have to be in the industry and have lived. So you're not going straight from your sixth form college from your undergraduate degree into this. You have to have some time in between. Our lives are not as simple as we might think, and so it's tough but rewarding. That's my summary that I'm going to give you. Does that answer the question? Or have I gone off on a random?
No, I think it does. You've explained the experience, and you've given, I think, a good recommendation to people that if you have this nagging question that you want to look into, a doctorate is a great way to do that. And as a developing profession, we need to build that body of scholarship and research to support ourselves. So as a practitioner in the industry, I want to thank you for contributing to that body of knowledge, because I think it's really important that we do continue to do that for the good of our profession.
And I'm not going to make out that it was a completely selfless act. It was selfless act. It was very selfish as well. The amount of stuff I've learned about me as a coach, about coaching, it's just been phenomenal. So, but also, on the flip side, you don't have to go and do formal research. You could start looking into something off your own back, right? You don't have to go down that postgraduate route, as long as you're careful and you're doing it ethically, which is maybe something that the education, the academic arm brings to it.
Yeah. Be the researcher practitioner. That's a fantastic thing.
But the invitation is there. If someone is thinking about this, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or give me a shout in any other way. I'd be happy to talk to people if they're interested in it. But don't worry, I'm not going to steal your idea and go and do another doctorate. I'm done with the doctorate now. However, this is a good moment to mention something. I am doing some more research. Linda, this is as if you planned this. I am doing some more research, and I'm doing I've got a short questionnaire about looking at global styles of humor. So I would request or ask or beg people to go to this Google form, answer the few questions, but also if you could share it with others. I'm looking for a few thousand responses, so that would be great. And that's going to not give me answers, but it's going to stimulate some of the questions I'm going to ask in the next phase of the research. So please go and give me a look at that. Oh, and I've accidentally just clicked on another slide here, Linda. So this is our next coaching program. So for the level 1 ICF accreditation, you can come and join us for 3 wonderful in-person days, and then followed by a few months of weekly sessions where we're looking deeper into the core competencies of coaching. And we have one-to-one and group coach mentoring sessions as well. So please, again, feel free to give me a shout if you want to know any more about this, or go to davidlowe.coach/APC.
And likewise, if you want to talk to me about it, please reach out through LinkedIn. That's a good way to do that. And yeah, we hope to see you again in future sessions, because there's always something to talk about in coaching.
Finally, thank you very much, Linda, for giving me this grilling over the last 6 weeks. I know it's not going to end just because it's not on LinkedIn Live. And I look forward to more conversations with all of you. Thanks very much.
Yeah, you too. So wishing you all very well, and see you again soon. Goodbye.